I never imagined that the poor student I had helped for 3 years, with all my strength, would ultimately become the destroyer of my marriage. I thought my kind actions would be met with gratitude. But instead, she secretly set her sights on my husband. When I was about to give birth, she said she wanted to end her life, and my husband didn't hesitate to abandon me and rush to her. I walked alone on the elevated highway, enduring excruciating pain, bleeding profusely, with amniotic fluid nearly depleted. In the end, I lost the baby. When I finally sought solace to share my grief, all I received was my husband's cold request for a divorce. He said he needed to care for her first and would consider remarriage once she had stabilized emotionally. My world was turned upside down overnight. My sacrifices and trust were trampled into the ground. 2 years later, when I had rebuilt my life and encountered them again, all that remained were their mocking words and unfounded accusations. The irony of fate leaves one powerless. On the day I gave birth, my husband received a call from Emily, the impoverished student I had been helping for 3 years. She said she had always loved my husband but didn't want to be a third party, so she had decided to end her life. Upon hearing this, my husband immediately left me on the elevated highway and turned back to Emily. My legs were injured, and I endured the pain to walk 6 kilometers on the elevated highway before finally catching a ride from a kind stranger. By the time I reached the hospital, the amniotic fluid had almost completely drained, and my clothes were soaked in blood. The doctor said I had arrived too late. The baby had suffocated and was stillborn. My heart ached deeply. I wanted to tell my husband the tragic news, but he spoke first. "Let's divorce. We'll discuss remarriage once she's calmed down." The child was gone, and no amount of grief would change that, but I could protect another innocent woman. I was in agony all night, but the next day I told him calmly, "Let's divorce from now on. We're free." My husband turned around and married a girl with poor economic conditions. I was so heartbroken I cried until I had no tears left, and eventually decided to leave the city that had hurt me so deeply. 2 years later, I remarried and began a happy life. Unbeknownst to me, I encountered my ex-husband again. He excitedly asked me, "Can't you just live alone? Didn't you promise us that we would remarry in the future? Are you in such a hurry to find someone else? You got married so quickly, Olivia. Where have you been for the past 2 years? You disappeared for so long and finally showed up today? Are you here to ask me for money? I'll remind you first, today is very important to me. You'd better behave yourself and not cause any trouble, or you won't get a single penny." At the entrance of the high-speed rail station, the man walking toward me gave me a cold smile and spoke harshly. I stood there stunned for a long time before recognizing him. It was my ex-husband, Daniel. The woman beside him I also recognized. She was Emily. I had sponsored her for 3 years to help her complete her education. Back then, Emily would wear the same outfit for 6 years. Covered in patches, she had asked me to sponsor her through college. I felt sorry for her, so I softened my heart and agreed to cover all her expenses. Not only tuition and living costs, but also her daily expenses, including clothes, food, accommodation, and essential cosmetics and skincare products. I never imagined that this economically disadvantaged student from the mountains would have her sights set on my husband from the start, aiming to replace me forever. After just 2 years apart, Emily had completely transformed. She was dressed in designer clothes, looking particularly eye-catching. Compared to the poor student she once was, she now resembled a wealthy housewife. Emily's gaze toward me was filled with defiance. Clearly, she was showing off that she had successfully gotten together with Daniel. When Daniel saw I didn't react, he felt displeased and mocked me. "Olivia, you're so petty. Back then, I just wanted to help, but you left me out of spite. I thought you'd never come back, but here you are. But even if you come back begging me, I won't look at you again. You and I are simply not on the same level. You must have had a terrible life after leaving me, right? Now you finally understand how important money is, don't you? Do you know how outstanding I am? I will be the pillar of your life. Unfortunately, it's too late now. From the moment you started being selfish and stubborn, you were no longer suitable to be my wife. I must make it clear to you that there is no possibility between us, and I will not remarry you. I am very happy now, even happier than you, and this is all your own choice." Daniel remained confident. I shook my head helplessly and smiled, saying, "Don't misunderstand. I came to the high-speed rail station for business." Daniel looked at me with a suspicious expression. You to handle business at the high-speed rail station. Do you have money to take the high-speed rail? I didn't answer, but he burst out laughing. If you want money, just ask for it, don't make excuses. The more you hide it, the more people look down on you. Even Emily, who was standing beside me, started mocking me. Olivia, I'm about to marry Daniel. Why did you show up now? Are you trying to cause trouble? This puts me in a really awkward position. After all, Daniel's company is growing bigger and bigger. What you're doing now makes us have to consider our image. Daniel didn't bother to say another word to me. He pulled out a bank card and flung it at me. The password is Emily's birthday. Take the money and leave. Don't bother me again. After saying that, he turned around and left with Emily. I was furious at his nonsensical insults. I wanted to retort and argue with them, but when I looked at the time, my husband was almost here. Every time I went to pick him up before, I was always late. And he would always complain to me. Today, I was in boxing class when I suddenly received a call from my husband saying he was coming back unexpectedly. I didn't have time to tidy up, so I rushed to the high-speed rail station. Maybe it was because my hair was messy and I didn't look presentable, so Daniel misunderstood that I wanted to remarry him. Never mind, I took a deep breath, adjusted my mood, and walked inside. I have a happy family, a considerate husband, and a life that's gradually improving. Why should I let myself be troubled by those unworthy people? Thinking about it, I felt much lighter. As soon as I walked into the business waiting hall, I was stunned. The usually neat and quiet waiting hall was now very noisy. Many men were talking loudly. Some were smoking, and occasional bursts of laughter filled the air, making the entire waiting hall filled with smoke. I spotted Daniel immediately. He was surrounded by a group of men, clearly enjoying the attention. Daniel is truly impressive. His company is thriving, and no one can compare to him. This time, Daniel has teamed up with Larry Group. They're sure to achieve great things in the future. Daniel pretended to be modest, waving his hands and saying, "Our collaboration with Larry Group hasn't even started yet. It's not really a partnership." Daniel, don't be humble. You're sure to succeed. I hope that after Daniel and Larry Group collaborate, they'll bring us along too, so we can benefit from their success. Daniel listened to everyone's praise and felt very pleased with himself. Emily beside him was also enjoying the attention, feeling like she was Daniel's wife, happily accepting everyone's compliments. I couldn't help but frown and cough lightly. Someone heard my cough and noticed me, immediately saying unhappily, "Hey, this isn't your resting area, outsider. Did you see those big words? The business waiting hall isn't for just anyone to enter. Get out of here." I pulled out my VIP card expressionlessly and said, "I'm not in the wrong place." The man snorted as if he wanted to say something, but Daniel walked over from behind. He pushed the man aside and coldly looked at me, saying, "Olivia, you're really something. You even bought a VIP card to ask me for money." I had no interest in arguing with him and just brushed past his shoulder to go inside and rest. Daniel blocked my way, contemptuously pulled out a few bills, shoved them into my hand, and broke my VIP card. "Here's the money. Keep the card. You don't deserve to rest here. I have business to attend to. Can you leave now?" I was so angry I almost exploded. After 2 years, Daniel had become even more indifferent. I called over the staff. To my surprise, after glancing at my attire, the staff immediately stood by Daniel's side and joined in mocking me. "If you refuse to accept Daniel's VIP card as compensation, you may still remain in the VIP lounge." I pointed to the no smoking sign and asked if they could please extinguish their cigarettes. The VIP lounge is a public area. There are other passengers resting here as well. Shouldn't you consider their feelings? After I spoke, the staff member's attitude grew even colder. "Sorry. These gentlemen have already paid the fine, so they can smoke freely for the next hour. We can't let these gentlemen leave. If you feel uncomfortable, you can choose not to rest here. After all, the VIP lounge isn't open to everyone. There are more resting areas there. You can go there." Her words were actually mocking me. I laughed angrily and said, "You're siding with them without distinguishing right from wrong. This violates your job standards. I'll file a complaint against you." The staff member looked at me coldly and said, "Ma'am, the VIP lounge is specifically for VIPs. I have no problem saying that. These business owners paid the fine and have VIP cards, so I should serve them. If you're dissatisfied, you can file a complaint. I don't care." After saying that, the staff member no longer paid attention to me and began serving tea to them. Daniel saw this and couldn't help but laugh, mocking me, Olivia. It's been 2 years since we last saw each other, and you've become so terrible. You're always threatening to file complaints. I never saw you act so shamefully when you were with me before. Emily chimed in, pretending to be concerned but actually mocking me. Olivia, this place isn't suitable for you. You should leave sooner rather than later to avoid being gossiped about and making a fool of yourself. Our conversation caught the attention of those around us. A few other bosses curiously asked, Daniel, do you know this person? Daniel's smile vanished instantly, and he replied indifferently, it's just a bad connection. The other bosses laughed and joked. That's normal. Daniel is so rich, it's no wonder he has a few troublesome love interests. These materialistic women just love the life of a rich man. Which man's love story doesn't have some twists and turns? Which successful person hasn't been influenced by women? As long as Daniel is happy now, Daniel has his wife by his side. This is just part of his journey to finding true love. These people mocked me and belittled me without mercy. Even though they don't know the truth, they still spoke harshly to me. Daniel and I lived together for several years, and I even carried his child. Facing such mockery, Daniel didn't say a word in explanation. Instead, he smiled and said, I wonder where this young lady heard the news that I would be here today and came specifically to stop me. Everyone felt sorry for Daniel. He continued, I advise you to leave immediately. I'm here to meet Carl. Don't delay me from handling important matters. Seeing that I didn't leave, Daniel said again, Are you after my money? See, she knows my career is going well and wants to get her hands on some of my money. The boss nearby immediately sided with Daniel and scolded her. Miss, you're almost 30 years old. How can you be so desperate for money that you don't even care about your dignity? Don't you see that Daniel is already married? What you're doing is disrupting someone else's family and emotions. Moreover, the people who come here to rest are usually here for business, begging for money like a beggar. Don't you feel ashamed? I suggest you leave immediately and stop trying to attract attention. I took a deep breath and remained calm. I'll say it again. Daniel and I just happened to meet. I'm not here to ask for money. After I finished speaking, Daniel actually laughed. Do you want me to change my mind? Then stop bothering me. Okay, I admit I once loved you, and we had a bad relationship, but that's all in the past. I don't love you anymore. Why are you still bothering me? He said, holding Emily's hand. Now my career is going smoothly, my family is happy, and I'm about to marry Emily. As for you, you're already in the past. Even if you show up again in 2 years, you won't evoke any good memories for me. I just find your tactics unpleasant. I don't remember who started clapping first. Soon, the VIP room erupted in enthusiastic applause. Daniel is so impressive. That's exactly what you should do. Protect your wife. Daniel can balance both his career and family. He's our role model. That fawning, sycophantic behavior made me feel very uncomfortable. I didn't want to get involved with these people anymore and turned to leave. Emily grabbed me and shouted, Wait, Olivia, are you just going to leave like this? I paused for a moment, looking at her. She continued, Don't you think you should apologize to me? I looked at Emily in confusion. What do you mean? She suddenly pointed to her coat and said, This coat was custom made for me by Daniel. You pulled it just now. Almost ruining it. You should compensate me. This coat costs $20,000. The people around us started to blame me. You can't even argue, so you resort to damaging someone else's clothes. How uncultured of you. Not only are you uncultured, but you're also vindictive. Daniel looked at me coldly. Olivia, I never expected you to become so disappointing after 2 years. I sighed and said, I didn't pull her jacket. Emily suddenly looked at me with a hurt expression. Am I lying? I'm about to become the wife of the CEO of a listed company. My status and position speak for themselves. Do I really need to wrong you over a jacket? Daniel heard this and looked at me with even more hostility. Apologize quickly, don't make me look bad. I spat at him, not sparing Daniel any dignity. This is ridiculous. What does this have to do with you? How did it become about you making me look bad? Daniel, don't be so self-righteous. I've never liked you and I didn't come here for you. I must have hit a nerve. Hearing my words, he panicked, his expression darkening. You really don't realize your mistake. Fine, then I won't help you anymore. I just wanted you to apologize and we could let this go. Since that's the case, then you'll have to compensate me at the original price. If you refuse to compensate me, we'll have to call the police. I glanced at the time and realized it was almost time to pick someone up. After thinking for a moment, I told Emily, 20,000, I can give it to you. This matter can't just end like this. I'll go to the police and ask them to investigate. Emily's expression changed instantly. I continued, if it really was my fault, then you can keep the 200,000 yuan. But if it wasn't my fault, then you must return the money and apologize publicly. After saying that, I took out my phone to transfer the money to Emily. Daniel waved his hand and knocked my phone to the ground. Olivia, what are you doing here? Can you really afford $20,000? If you had $20,000, would you be bothering me for money like this? He looked at me suspiciously. Are you trying to borrow money from a loan shark? Are you willing to sacrifice your dignity for the sake of your pride? The phone hit the ground with a thud, shattering the screen. I didn't want to argue with them anymore and prepared to leave, but the staff stopped me. Miss, you can't leave yet. The VIP room door was locked, and everyone's eyes were on me. We have to wait for the police. There are still unresolved financial issues between you and Emily. You can't leave until then. I understood that the staff was just trying to make Daniel and Emily happy. Everyone was blaming me, and I could only pick up my phone and sit quietly by the side, waiting for the police to investigate. Not far away, Emily looked at me with a clear look of satisfaction in her eyes. I couldn't understand why she would treat someone who had once helped her like this. Would it really make her happy? If I hadn't supported Emily, how would she have had the chance to get close to Daniel? Emily herself had said that I was like her second parent. Without my financial support, she wouldn't have achieved what she has today. She often came to my house to help out, cleaning, cooking, and doing the dishes. I was very grateful to her. I told her that these tasks could be done by a maid, and she should focus on her studies and her career. But she insisted that these were things she should do. Every holiday, Emily would come to my house to visit. During the new year, she would even kowtow to me and wish me a happy new year, saying it was a custom from her hometown. I was moved by Emily's actions and felt that I had sponsored a kind-hearted girl. Later, I realized that the greater the kindness, the more resentment it can bring. The more I helped Emily, the more jealous she became of me. Eventually, if I helped her less, she would become dissatisfied, feeling that I wasn't as kind as before. The more humble she appeared in front of me, the more she wanted to make me feel inferior, trying to regain the self-respect she felt she had lost from me. She wasn't just ungrateful, she was also cunning and scheming, always plotting how to climb the social ladder. During that time, she frequently came to my house and used the opportunity to get closer to Daniel. As time went on, they grew more familiar with each other, giving her the chance to cheat on me. By the time I found out, I was already 30 weeks pregnant, and the baby was about to be born. I had no choice but to endure it, forgive Daniel, and hope that the child would be born healthy and safe. On the day I gave birth, Emily suddenly got into trouble and called Daniel crying, saying she wanted to jump off a building. Daniel didn't hesitate to leave me on the elevated highway and rushed to find Emily. I thought to myself that Emily must have felt so superior at that moment. My hatred for her was beyond words. If it weren't for her, my child wouldn't have lost his life. The past is still fresh in my memory, and I couldn't help but sigh. Emily had walked over to me at some point, raising her eyebrows challengingly. Olivia, it's karma, isn't it? Now it's my turn to live the good life. Everything you once had, I have now, and I'm no worse off than you were back then, and you have nothing left. I nodded calmly in response. That's right, you even inherited someone like Daniel. I don't need him, so you can have him. When you supported me before, you only liked my second-hand clothes and bags. I never thought you wouldn't even care about a second-hand husband. Emily heard my words and was so angry she raised her hand to hit me. But I grabbed her hand first. She laughed and said, "You're just talking. In the end, I'm the one who wins. You have nothing now. No child, no husband, and not even a share of Daniel's inheritance. It's all been for nothing. Oh, and I never told you this before, but when I went to your house back then, I actually put abortion pills in your water. That's why you couldn't keep the baby. It must have been because of those pills." With a loud thud, the pressure in my head suddenly eased. I suddenly remembered what happened on the day I gave birth. I kept wondering why the baby suffocated to death in my womb, even though the amniotic fluid hadn't completely drained out. The hospital didn't give a clear conclusion, only saying that the fetus had suffered oxygen deprivation due to intense physical activity before childbirth. Anger filled my heart, and I couldn't help but slap Emily. As the slap landed, Daniel rushed over to me. Olivia, how dare you hit Emily? He suddenly kicked me hard in the chest with all his strength, causing me to groan in pain and fall to the ground. My chest ached intensely, making it difficult to breathe, let alone speak. Daniel wasn't going to let me off the hook. He didn't care about my distress. Grabbing my hair and dragging me toward Emily's feet. Apologize to Emily right now, or else I won't let you off the hook. I was bleeding from my lips from his blows and had no strength left to speak. Daniel, seeing I didn't respond, yanked me up violently and slammed me against the white wall without hesitation. I told you to apologize, did you hear me? Another kick came flying, hitting Emily as well. I stumbled and fell to my knees, the pain in my knees intense. The wealthy people around us pretended not to see, and some even wanted to take advantage of the situation to join in beating me. But just then, the door to the VIP room was pushed open. The staff rushed over enthusiastically, saying, "Carl, you're here?" Tears streamed down my face. Thank goodness, I finally had someone to rely on. "Carl, you must be tired from your journey. We've prepared some tea for you at the station. You can rest for a moment, have some snacks and drink some tea." "Carl, I'm from Eastern Group. We've met before. I hope we can learn more from you in the future." "Carl, this is a gift from our high-end jewelry store for your wife. Please accept it." When Carl arrived, everyone around him swarmed like puppies, flattering him and trying to make him happy. But Carl merely responded casually, too busy to pay them any attention. He looked around, as if searching for someone, but after scanning the crowd, he didn't see a familiar face and sighed in disappointment. Finally, Daniel approached Carl. He put on a flattering expression and smiled, saying, "Hello, Carl. I'm the president of Daniel Group. We sincerely hope to collaborate with Larry Group. This is the proposal I prepared overnight. Please take a look." I tried to stand up and call out to Carl, but Emily beside me kept holding my shoulders, preventing me from moving. Seeing that I wasn't cooperating, she stuffed a dirty cloth into my mouth and sternly warned me, "Don't you dare move. My husband is discussing a major business deal. If you dare to interfere with this deal, I won't let you off." Daniel held the proposal in both hands and handed it to Carl. Carl didn't take the phone, just glanced at him briefly, then said impatiently, "Let's reschedule. I'm not in the mood to discuss business today." Daniel froze, standing there feeling extremely embarrassed. Everyone in the VIP lounge knew he had come specially today, yet he was now being rejected, and his expression looked rather unpleasant. He felt a bit nervous. Dare not let Carl get angry, so he forced a smile and asked, "Well, when would Carl be available?" Carl didn't respond at all, focusing on his phone call. He angrily said to his secretary, "Why haven't you gotten in touch with Olivia yet? What's wrong with her? Where did she go?" The secretary was a bit flustered and hurriedly explained, "I've tried several numbers, but I still can't reach Miss Olivia. She's turned off her phone." Carl was getting angry. "Then check the signal source, check the IP address. Find out where she went. This woman is getting more and more outrageous. Before, she was just late picking him up, but now she's turned off her phone." The people around him didn't notice that Carl sounded a little hurt when he said this. But as soon as Daniel heard my name, he got excited, as if wanting to show off, and said, "Carl, you're looking for Olivia, aren't you?" Carl turned his head and looked at Daniel sharply. "What, did you see her?" Daniel thought Carl and I had a conflict. So he immediately said triumphantly, "Of course I saw her. Not only did I see her, but I also beat her up." "Carl, I don't know what that woman did to make you angry, but I can tell she's been bothering you. But don't worry, I've already dealt with her for you. From now on, you can leave such matters to me." "What do you mean by that?" When Carl heard the word deal, his expression turned ugly. He grabbed Daniel by the collar, and at nearly 1.9 meters tall, he almost lifted Daniel off the ground. He didn't have time to think about anything else. He just walked toward Daniel step by step, urgently asking, "Tell me, where is Olivia now? When did you hit her?" Daniel was so scared by Carl that he froze. Carl, what are you talking about?" With a loud thud, Carl threw Daniel to the ground. The bosses nearby had already been scared speechless. When they saw Carl looking their way, they all felt afraid and quickly made way, exposing me. At that moment, Emily was still crouched beside me, covering my mouth. Because the crowd blocked her view, she had no idea what was happening. When she saw Carl approaching angrily, she was startled by his aura and hurriedly explained, "Mr. Carl, this woman came to ask my husband for money. I had no choice but to teach her a lesson. I'm truly sorry for disrupting your business discussion. I'll take her away immediately." Carl slapped her across the face. Emily couldn't react in time, and her face swelled up instantly. She let out a painful scream and fell to the ground. I shouted with tears in my voice. Carl immediately grew anxious and hurriedly embraced me to comfort me. Emily, who witnessed the scene, was so frightened she froze in place. "Carl, is Olivia your wife? I'm sorry. We didn't know." If she had known that, she wouldn't have dared to speak to me like that. Unfortunately, Carl didn't give her time to explain or make excuses. He merely waved his hand, and the bodyguards behind him immediately stepped forward. Daniel and Emily were pushed into a corner. The bodyguards covered their mouths and attacked them viciously. The bosses were all tense, glancing at me cautiously. Their eyes betrayed regret, shock, and disbelief. Some tried to slip away, but Carl swept his gaze over them and coldly said, "Everyone stay put. No one is to leave until I've figured out what's going on." The bosses were panicking, their faces pale, when Daniel and Emily were mistreating me. These people were there to help or even take action. None of them were innocent. As soon as Carl finished speaking, someone hurried to distance themselves from the situation. But Carl's gaze was piercing. There was no way they could escape so easily. The bosses immediately grew afraid and knelt before Carl, confessing their mistakes one after another. They feared that if they spoke too late, they would be criticized by Carl. They lined up one by one to apologize to me. I remained silent, feeling furious inside, just coldly watching them. Carl's expression was grim and he ignored them. The bosses looked tense and uneasy. Suddenly, someone raised their hand and slapped themselves. "Carl, I was wrong. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me." Carl and Miss Olivia, seeing this, the others seemed to understand something and began frantically hitting themselves. Carl and I just watched silently, saying nothing. Half an hour later, all the bosses' faces were swollen. Some had bleeding lips with bright red bloodstains standing out clearly. Carl nodded satisfactorily and whispered, "That's enough." The bosses seemed to lose their minds, slapping themselves twice before calming down. Seeing that Carl had forgiven them, the bosses immediately broke down in tears, expressing their gratitude. However, Carl paid them no further attention and instead turned his gaze toward Daniel and Emily in the corner. Their situation was even worse than that of the bosses. They had been cornered and were severely injured. Emily was trembling all over, but Carl stood up and approached her, asking seriously, "I'll ask you one more time. Did my wife ruin your clothes?" Emily clenched her teeth but still replied to Carl, "Carl, I believe Mrs. Carl didn't do it on purpose. And I don't want to blame her either. It was mostly those people around us stirring things up and making it more complicated." Carl nodded. "All right, Carl, have never liked bullying others by taking advantage of my position." He said this while pulling me toward Emily. Emily saw this and took a step back in fear. But Carl coldly said, "Stand up." He stood there, exuding an aura of authority without raising his voice. Emily had no choice but to obey his command, even though her body was covered in injuries. She forced herself to stand up despite the pain. Her sleeve had indeed been torn, revealing a few threads which looked rather bad. Carl whispered to me, "Honey, should we tear the other side of her clothes too?" I smiled at Carl and then gripped Emily's wound tightly. She let out a muffled groan, but I didn't let go. I put all my strength into that hand, gripping it tightly. Emily was crying from the pain, but she dared not shout loudly, only sobbing softly, "Olivia, it's my fault. Please forgive me. I was wrong. I'll never do it again." I let go, and Emily finally regained consciousness. There were no signs of her clothes being torn. Emily turned pale. Carl saw this and pressed further. "You said my wife tore your clothes, right? But it looks like you did it yourself. Now you see, my wife pulled for so long. And the other sleeve isn't even torn." Emily stammered. "I don't know." Carl motioned for a bodyguard. "You don't know?" "I don't believe you." The sleeve was deliberately torn. "You really don't know? Why don't you help her think about what happened?" The bodyguard immediately understood Carl's meaning. His movements were brutal, showing no regard for Emily as a woman. Soon, Emily's painful screams echoed through the room. She couldn't endure the pain any longer and soon confessed the truth, begging Carl to spare her. "I remember now. I remember I was the one who ruined this dress. It has nothing to do with Olivia. Please don't blame her. I was wrong. Carl, please forgive me." Carl had no interest in Emily and casually dismissed the bodyguards. He then scanned the room, fixing his gaze on the bosses and coldly asked, "Are you unable to come up with a solution, or do you simply refuse to resolve this case?" I could prove my wife's innocence in a single second, yet you're supporting those too? Framing her and even laying hands on her. Do you think I'm easy to bully, or do you think I'm not here, so you can handle my affairs however you like? All the bosses were startled, lowering their heads and daring not to speak. Carl gave a cold smile, showing no mercy. None of you will be able to collaborate with Larry Group for the next 5 years. When the bosses heard about the punishment, they felt utterly despairing, nearly fainting. If they lost Larry Group's cooperation, many of them would face bankruptcy. Though the company was in crisis, they dared not say another word, fearing they might anger Carl. Daniel felt terrified in the dark corner. Sure enough, Carl's gaze fell on her. As for you, I'll have to keep a close eye on you. No, Carl, I know I was wrong. He kept bowing his head, begging for forgiveness. But Carl only coldly replied, no matter who your company collaborates with, I'll do everything in my power to stop it. Anyone who does business with you will be considered my enemy. After hearing these words, Daniel felt as though all his strength had been drained, and he looked at Carl in despair. Carl, are you leaving me no room for mercy? Carl didn't want to argue further and prepared to leave. Daniel raised his voice, unwilling to give up, and called out to Carl. Wait, Carl? I have something else to say. Carl, I'll tell you a secret. Can you spare me? About your wife, Olivia's secret? Daniel's words made me tense up instantly. I didn't know what Daniel was going to say, but I could tell he didn't have any good intentions. Sure enough, Carl stopped when he heard this, and I followed suit, waiting for Daniel to speak. To my surprise, Carl spoke first. My wife's affairs are none of your business. You're just an outsider, you can't come between us. I felt a lump in my throat and tears welled up in my eyes. At that desperate moment, Daniel shouted from behind us, Carl, Olivia is divorced. I'm her ex-husband. Carl turned around, looking at Daniel with a look of contempt. I already knew that. Who hasn't encountered some unreliable people in their youth? You cheated in your marriage, causing your own child to suffer, and you dare to shout about it here? What happened back then wasn't Olivia's fault. It was your responsibility. After saying that, Carl took my hand and led me away. Daniel was completely devastated. He walked toward Emily in a daze, trying to help her stand up, saying, let's go. But Emily angrily pushed his hand away and cried out, it's all your fault? It's all your fault. You promised to marry me 2 years ago. It's been so hard waiting this long. I've waited this long and still can't marry you. If you had given me more money, I wouldn't have caused such a scene. Why would you care so much about this dress? Daniel was confused by Emily's words. He was just shocked. Emily, didn't you say you loved me? Not my money. Emily didn't care about any of that. She just kept screaming, so in your eyes, I'm worth nothing. I didn't want to watch them argue anymore. So I wrapped my arm around Carl's, and we left the VIP lounge. After walking a short distance, I saw the station manager scolding the staff members who had been bullying others. It seemed that the incident had already caught the attention of higher-ups. The station management knew their staff had caused trouble and was now trying to resolve the matter. When the staff member saw me come out, he immediately ran over with a hurt expression, kneeling before me and begging for forgiveness. I ignored her and walked past her. How could one repay a grudge with kindness? Of course, one must respond to hatred directly. I didn't feel the need to forgive her. My injuries were only superficial. I went to the hospital for treatment and recovered quickly. However, Carl insisted that I stay in the hospital for a thorough checkup. Throughout this process, Carl's eyes were red. When I asked him, he started blaming himself, feeling he hadn't protected me properly. After the checkup, when we were alone in the ward, Carl finally couldn't hold back and embraced me, his face filled with concern, saying, honey, I'll never let you go to the station again. I was happy and immediately agreed. Okay, but Carl's expression suddenly turned dejected. I thought to myself, this man really says one thing but means another. However, she didn't say it out loud. Instead, she smiled and said, hey, honey, I still want to pick you up as long as you don't mind me being late. Carl's previously gloomy face immediately brightened up. I don't mind. I'll wait for you at the terminal. No matter how late you are, I'll wait. I was overjoyed inside and secretly made a hand gesture behind his back. But just as the game ended, I noticed there was a mirror behind me. My little gesture was clearly seen by Carl. He looked at me with a suspicious expression, and I quickly changed the subject. Do you think it's strange that there were no flower bouquets or fruit baskets in my hospital room this time? That's too much? Carl immediately understood what I meant and said, I'll go buy some right away. He acted quickly and left immediately. I watched his departing figure and felt very happy, unable to help but smile. I'm so lucky to have met Carl, who helped me make up for all those unhappy days in the past. Life in the hospital has been a bit boring these past few days. Actually, I'm not sick. I just have to wait until tomorrow for the results of a few tests. That night, while Carl was sound asleep, I quietly went downstairs to get some fresh air. Suddenly, someone called my name from behind. I was so scared that my hands started shaking, thinking I had sneaked out and been caught by Carl. But when I turned around, I saw Daniel's gaze. I immediately became alert and prepared to call for help. However, Daniel suddenly knelt in front of me, his eyes filled with tenderness. He said to me with deep emotion, "Olivia, do you know why I never married Emily? Because I've never been able to forget you. I've been waiting for you to come back." Daniel cried as he spoke, looking as if he were truly emotional. But I didn't want to hear her continue, so I sighed coldly. "Daniel, have you changed so much? I remember you didn't say that at the station. You said Emily was your true love. Didn't you? You told me to stay away and not disturb your happy life with Emily." Hearing this, Daniel's face turned slightly awkward. "No, you misunderstood. I said those things on purpose to make you angry. I love you so much that your leaving back then made me hold a grudge against you. If you're willing to compromise and say something softly, I'll hug you right away. We've been married for so long, you should know that I prefer gentle ways, not forceful ones." After saying this, Daniel reached out to hug me, but I stepped away and whispered, "I don't care how you handle things. I just want you to stay away from me and stop interfering with my happy life." Hearing this, Daniel's expression grew even more pained. "Olivia, are you still blaming me?" Looking at his affected manner, I felt repulsed. I didn't want to say another word to him. I pointed to the hospital entrance and said, "Let's go." I turned and walked toward the ward, while Daniel pleaded behind me, "Olivia, I swear I still love you. Today, I went to the station, just to let you calm down, and hope you won't be so careless in the future. You don't know how happy I was when I saw you." I couldn't help but roll my eyes and say, "You're so funny." After saying that, Daniel still clung to me and chased after me. There were already many of Carl's bodyguards near the ward. When they saw him approaching me, the bodyguards immediately stopped Daniel. I was startled and turned to see Carl standing in the hallway, watching me with an amused expression. There was no sign of him being asleep. "You snuck downstairs to meet Daniel while your husband was asleep," Carl whispered. "I didn't. I just came down to get some fresh air. I didn't know he was there." I explained nervously. Carl looked at me calmly and said, "But what I saw was you two together." I frowned and said, "I really didn't." Carl sighed softly and said, "If you want me to forgive you, that's fine. As long as I perked up, as long as what?" Carl continued, "From now on, you're responsible for picking him up. Don't be late." Facing the head of the Carl family, I couldn't argue and felt helpless, wanting to cry. The next day, I hurried out of the hospital. To my surprise, Daniel was waiting at the hospital entrance and stopped my car. He held up a sign that read, "Olivia, please give me another chance to pursue you." I was stunned. And Carl beside me was speechless. How could you have ever looked down on him? Hearing him say that, I felt so embarrassed. I couldn't understand how he could have become so pathetic. Carl still had a playful smile on his face, while I gently pushed him aside. "Honey, get him out of here." He noticed my discomfort and immediately called the bodyguards. But before the bodyguards could act, a woman walked toward Daniel. It was Emily. She looked like a furious woman, rushing over and clawing at Daniel. Daniel didn't fight back, his face betraying a hint of guilt. Seeing him like this, Emily grew even angrier, berating Daniel without mercy. "Daniel, you're completely useless. The company is about to go bankrupt. And you're still here thinking about Olivia. Olivia has already married Carl. You're just making a fool of yourself here and getting nothing in return." Emily was right, and Daniel stood there speechless. At that moment, Daniel truly felt powerless. Perhaps Carl's arrival had dealt a severe blow to his pride. As Emily continued her tirade, she suddenly grew weak and walked toward me and Carl. Before Emily could get close, Carl stood in front of me, worried she might hurt me. But Emily knelt down in front of everyone and bowed her head 3 times. "Olivia, please spare us this time. At the station, we were blind and failed to recognize your importance. I was wrong, truly wrong." After saying that, Emily began to kowtow repeatedly. The hospital entrance was bustling with people, and I didn't know how many were watching the commotion. Passers-by pointed and whispered, but she seemed completely oblivious, continuing to kowtow to me. After thinking for a moment, I stepped out from behind Carl. Emily saw me and was both surprised and delighted, rushing over to my side. Looking at her kneeling on the ground and begging, I couldn't help but recall some things and said to Emily, "Do you feel like this scene is reminiscent of the past?" Hearing this, Emily froze. I spoke slowly. "Many years ago, you also knelt before me like this, begging me to help you with money. At that time, you were also very humble. To pay for tuition, you knelt before everyone, and even during festivals, you would bow your head to me and offer your respects. At first, I felt sorry for you, but later I realized you knew how to be grateful. Now I finally understand that a person who doesn't care about their dignity has no bottom line. People like you are terrifying. 2 years ago, you took everything from me. 2 years later, I won't let you get away with it again. Emily, this trick won't work on me. Your knees aren't worth mentioning, and your kneeling is meaningless." Upon hearing this, Emily's face turned pale. Then she turned to Carl and said, "Carl, I'm younger than Olivia. I can do many things." She clung to the last shred of hope, pleading, "Carl, can you give me a chance?" Carl frowned, didn't respond, and walked out of the hospital with me, heading toward the luxury car parked nearby. The car door locked, the windows rolled up, and Carl stepped on the gas, driving us away from this troublesome place. All that remained behind were the dejected Emily and the disheartened Daniel. A month later, Daniel's company went bankrupt. This change came faster than anyone had anticipated. The bosses were all dissatisfied with Daniel. After all, if it weren't for Daniel, they wouldn't have offended me at the station and suffered such a huge loss. So they vented all their anger on Daniel. Daniel went bankrupt, owed a lot of money, and became a defaulter. Emily began to feel fortunate that she hadn't married him, so she wouldn't have to take on all those debts. She decided to start looking for a new partner, someone wealthy. Unfortunately, everyone already knew about her relationship with Daniel, and Emily's reputation wasn't good either. Who would want to have anything to do with her? The scene of her kneeling outside the hospital begging me was also filmed and uploaded online. Netizens dug up all of Emily's information. They also discovered her past deeds, realizing that despite my help, she had still stolen my husband. As a result, Emily faced a lot of online attacks. In this situation, Emily actually thought that being attacked online was a form of exposure. She began streaming live without any hesitation, hoping to sell products and make some money, but within 5 minutes, the live stream turned into chaos. According to the contract, Emily had to compensate the suppliers for their losses. Like Daniel, she was burdened with a lot of debt. 3 months later, I became pregnant. Carl accompanied me to the hospital for a prenatal checkup. At the hospital entrance, I encountered Daniel and Emily, who were picking through trash. When they saw me, their eyes flashed with displeasure. However, when they noticed the bodyguards by my side, they quickly lowered their heads and hurried away. I asked Carl in confusion, "Even if they're bankrupt, they don't have to resort to picking through trash, do they?" Carl's tone was cold, which was understandable. No company would hire them. They couldn't find work, and even if they set up a stall, no one would buy anything from them. Picking through trash was their only option. I nodded and said nothing, continuing to follow Carl forward. 3 years later, I heard about Emily and Daniel's news on the news. Someone had found 2 bodies by the roadside, suspected to be homeless people who had died from eating contaminated food. The police confirmed the identities of the deceased as Emily and Daniel. I didn't pay much attention to the news because my daughter was urging me at the door. She called out in a soft, muffled voice, "Mom, Mom, hurry up. We'll miss Dad's flight," I said. I'm coming. If I'm late this time, you'll have to take responsibility for me," I added.